Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And we're the two hosts of Jedi Enclave Presents the Now. This is Podcasting Podcast.
It sounds really official when you say it that way. And it's
Should it not?
I mean, we're two nerds sitting in a basement.
It literally is a basement with my toys, which actually now sounds way more gross than I meant it to.
A little bit, yeah.
By the way, we made YouTube partner.
Oh, good. I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. Okay, so first of all, because we have our fair share of trolls now, which is how you know we actually made it.
Right? Sure, yeah.
And like I did a celebration Battlefront stream a couple days ago, and like there were like a couple of people that were like, "You didn't make YouTube partner. Your channel sucks. There's no way you made YouTube partner." And then I showed them the email, and they of course didn't have anything to say about it. And for
fake news,
yeah,
Chat GPT made that for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they've kind of they've expanded who can be in it.
That would make sense
to let smaller channels in as well, which is I think how we got in there too. But for some reason, earlier this week, someone in our chat said that they thought I was lying about being a saxophone player.
So did you just grab a saxophone?
I had one. Well, I didn't play it, but I had one right there, and I picked it up, and I was like,
"You should have played something."
Why would I lie about this? Like, out of all the things, why would you lie about being a saxophone player? You know, it's just so stupid. But anyway, welcome to our show, where we talk about Star Wars and other fandom-y things that we enjoy.
Like The Boys and House of the Dragon.
Yeah, which are two big players in our show today, actually. I'm actually super excited to talk about that. So we're talking today. We got some Star Wars news. There's some stuff on the upcoming Star Wars Disney Plus series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plural, because there are many of them.
Yeah. So a new trailer for House of the Dragon Season 2. Brand new today, which is a big deal. And The Boys Season 4 had a trailer. Taika Waititi is weighing in again about Star Wars. And we got some, we have our, we're going to be talking about the best moments in every Star Wars movie.
Okay.
So we're going to say something good, or at least I'm going to. You can say whatever you want, as long as it's good, about every Star Wars movie, even the ones we don't like.
Okay.
Because people love to bitch about the stuff they don't like in Star Wars, which we're going to do next week.
Oh, okay.
But this week, as a primer, just to make sure everyone understands what we believe about this, we are going to, and I have notes, and it's really funny because I was like, okay, so in chronological order, and it's like, okay, so there are 11 movies. I can do 3 things for every movie, keep it like three minutes a piece. And some of them are really easy. Like I had to stretch to get 3 things out of Rise of Skywalker. It's not like I got to Empire Strikes Back and I was like, there are way more than 3 things here. So I don't know. It'll be as long as it is. And we'll get there when we get there. If you're watching the podcast,
if you're watching in the future on YouTube,
the time codes for all of our discussions are in the comment or the description of this video.
And if you're watching in the present, then you just have to suffer through linearity.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just like watching a movie on network TV back in the day.
Yeah. Or just a TV show on network TV.
Thank you to Connor at the Star Wars Hub and Star Wars Veritas. He's our friend. We love him, and he does a cool thing over on Facebook. You should check it out.
It's one of the very few Star Wars fan pages that don't suck.
Yeah, that's true. And while you're here, make sure you like and subscribe, share the stream, and join us on Discord. You can find the link to that in our description. After this at 7, we're going to do Battlefront 2, where we're probably going to talk more about all of the things we like about Star Wars. And then no Gungans and Dragons this Saturday or Sunday, tomorrow, because John and I are celebrating my birthday. And hopefully I'll be getting laid. I don't know. Yeah. Or I'll be eating cheesecake.
¿Por qué no los dos?
Or what?
Why not both?
I was literally just about to say, or maybe I'll find a way to do both. I don't know.
We'll see. You can probably do both. The same time might be a little difficult, but I'm sure you would find a way.
Isn't there a rule about that?
I think it comes from Seinfeld.
I'm pretty sure I could find a video.
There's an episode where like George is having sex with a woman and he like pulls out a giant sandwich and tries to eat it.
Okay, but I won't be satisfied unless it's a literal cheesecake.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah. Let's get to news. Star Wars. Okay. So there are new Star Wars shows coming out in 2024.
Yes.
So first of all, there have been tons of Star Wars show announcements. Very few of them have actually come to fruition, right? On top of that, you have the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strikes, which fucked everything up. Yeah. And then on top of that, you have like Kathleen Kennedy being pressured by Bob Iger to announce projects that weren't ready to be projects
And then
yet.
stop announcing things because everything you announce gets canceled.
So good news, though, is according to Empire Magazine, there are a handful of shows that we're getting in 2024.
A literal handful, 5.
Yeah. Skeleton Crew, which is going to be a year from now, Christmas 2024. The Acolyte, which is nebulously happening sometime in the summer. Yeah. The summer. Bad Batch season 3, which is even more nebulous. So they're like maybe after May, probably.
I assume whenever they get done with all the finishing touches on the animation and stuff, because we know the voices were all recorded months ago.
Right. Yeah. At least, yeah. By the way, do you think Tech's actually dead?
Yes.
I don't think he is. And you know how I am about this, right? Because Star Wars fans love to...
So I assume you've been hanging out on Reddit, late at night when you can't sleep. Just
not at all.
Just clicking through, trying to find all the fan theories.
Okay, so Star Wars does this thing. Star Wars creators do this thing where they mean to kill a character and then they regret it. Darth Maul, Palpatine. All these people who were supposed to have died... But they're like, oh, but what if?
I don't think the people responsible for killing Maul or Palpatine regretted it. It was other people who came in and said, hey, I want to use this character, but they're dead. Let me retcon it.
And then we often make fun of Cad Bane, the Cad Bane camp. They were like, oh, Cad Bane didn't actually die in Book of Boba Fett.
No, he's very
light.
dead.
Yeah. Or Mace Windu or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So
who is dead.
Yeah, I'm very, very careful about being like, oh, that guy's coming back. Because most of the time I'm like, that's really stupid. That would not be good.
And somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah, but I think Tech, and I think it's their intention to bring him back. Like, I don't think that they're like, oh, he was going to be dead, but we're going to bring him back. There's something about how they presented the goggles at the end, and I didn't expect, it's a kid's show. I didn't think they're going to have a severed head or anything. But
that would be dark.
Yeah, I think that it would not surprise me to find out that Tech's still alive.
Okay.
Andor season 2, mid 2024.
God, yes, I'm so ready for it.
Genevieve O'Reilly, by the way, talked about it a little bit earlier in the year, where she's like, guys, this season's going to be fucking awesome. So I'm really excited about that.
People were saying that about season 1 before it came out too.
Right.
So
that's true. Yeah. And
I'm excited.
They were correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Tales of the Jedi season 2, no idea when it's coming out. At some point, 2024.
Probably the same with Bad Batch. It'll happen when it's done.
Right. And that actually could have a lot of really exciting stuff in it, because I've heard everything from animated Luke stories to Balin's Skull getting a Tales of the Jedi thing.
I hope so.
Yeah. So the first season of Tales of the Jedi was fucking awesome. I loved it. Even the stuff I didn't care about very much. And then what else do we have?
Let's talk about Taika Waititi.
Yes.
So
I love talking about Taika Waititi because he just makes me very happy.
He's a colossal troll.
Yes.
So
I know. I love him so much.
So he has a new movie coming out. It's about soccer or something. He gave an interview and he was asked about Star Wars, because that's what you do when you have a filmmaker who's making a Star Wars film, supposedly.
Making a Star Wars.
And he said, quote, I've been developing the Star Wars film for a few years, but I think with any film, but that one in particular, it's something I'd really like to get right, so I don't want to rush it. It's going to bubble along on the side. I want to capture that joy and entertainment of those early ones, like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and all those ones, so I'm trying to figure that out. It'll happen, unquote. So...
You know why he's saying this, right?
Yes, because everyone loves the original trilogy and everyone hates stuff that came after.
I am referring to all the shit he's been giving people about whether or not his thing's actually happening, or if he's actually done writing it, or if he's actually trying to piss fans off with it. Because
which he is.
He's been indicating on both sides of each of those since it's been announced. He's just been toying with people. So I think Lucasfilm was like, stop being an ass.
Stop being as much of an ass, because you can't just stop being an ass.
Which I really hope that he just keeps doing what he's doing.
Yeah. So he also has like 3 more projects happening in the near future aside from Star Wars. Yeah. So it could be several years before we see anything more about this movie. But like, I'm perfectly okay waiting, because I really like Taika Waititi and I really like his work. And if it takes him a while to have the time to devote to Star Wars, I'm okay with that.
I hope they stay out of his way. They stayed out of his way for Thor Ragnarok, and it fucking went bonkers.
That movie is fucking incredible.
So good. And it's very Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Right. They did not do the same thing for Love and Thunder. And as a result, that movie isn't very good.
I liked it, but I can see the arguments.
I was not a huge fan of it, and it's like it just felt a movie by a boardroom committee with Taika Waititi as director, kind of a thing. Everything else I've seen, like if you've seen Jojo Rabbit, it's fucking amazing. He's done a bunch of stuff that's really cool, and he has a film coming out.
The trailer for his upcoming soccer movie looks really good.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to see that because it looks pretty neat. So thank God. Mm-hmm. Thank God for Taika Waititi.
Long live Taika Waititi.
Chris says, "May the force be with you, Daniel and Chris. Hope you both are having a good night." It's all right.
Yeah, could be better.
Now Star Wars Theory wants Elon Musk to buy Star Wars from Disney. He would if he wasn't cash poor.
It's true.
This is what happens when you pay $40 billion for a social media company and then erase all of its worth. You don't have any money.
Yeah.
You're cash poor.
Like he had to sell off a shit ton of the stock of companies he owns in order to buy Twitter in the first place. So he didn't have that much money to begin with.
He had to do a little publicity stunt with the Cybertrucks. Where he's like, "Oh yeah, the Cybertrucks are going out," and they gave them to the first 10 people on the list, and they're like, "Everyone else is getting them in 3 years."
That is so incredibly on brand.
Yeah, it's always a grift. It's all a grift, right? So House of the Dragon season 2 had a trailer today, brand new. Mm-hmm. Fucking looks great. And let me tell you, I watched the first season. We both watched it. And then I waited until relatively recently to watch it again. Mm-hmm. And I loved it the second time just as much. And there's some shit in that trailer where I was like, this is like return to form, Game of Thrones, fucking palace intrigue, politics, people getting burned alive by dragons, people getting eviscerated on a battlefield. Like everything about it feels like first 3-4 seasons of Game of Thrones.
I admit it's been so long since I've seen season 1. I am going to have to go home and consult my diagram of the Targaryen family bush.
All their names.
To remember who all these people are. Because like I remember, oh, hey, that guy has one eye. I vaguely remember him. And oh, hey, it's the redhead. I remember her. And, and oh, hey, that's the girl who's fucking her uncle. That's kind of weird.
Well, that's all of them, I think.
Yeah.
Who's the redhead?
She's the one who married the king.
Oh, Viserys. Oh, yeah. Now I don't know her fucking name.
It's something like really normal.
Allison Hightower. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm a massive fan and I can't remember all their names. It's fucking crazy. So that, I think that's coming summer 2024. Yes. So I'm super excited about that. The Boys season 4 had a trailer as well. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, so I love Gen V and I loved Homelander's thing at the end. I realize Homelander's a bad guy. All right. But every time I see him, I'm like, what's he up to? I'm glad he's in this.
That actor is so charismatic.
Yeah, right. I know.
Like he plays that character as the guy you want to hate.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, Billy Butcher is,
yes. They got the guy who plays Negan in Walking Dead.
Walking Dead. I saw that. And then it looks like they're doing the thing with his son. Because he appears in one of the shots.
Evil Superboy, who I think throws a guy into a building at one point.
And then I imagine that they'll probably try to weave in the Gen V story a little bit.
At some point, yeah.
And maybe set up the next season.
It looks like the overarching plot is going to be it's election season.
Yeah.
So, Victoria Newman, the head popper, is about to become the vice president and then presumably president after she explodes the president's head.
Yeah. And as we all well know, there's nothing controversial about elections in the United States.
Nope.
So I'm sure everything will go just fine and everyone will be very happy with the result.
There definitely won't be a riot between two groups of supporters like we saw in the trailer.
Or America. What else? I was going to do this thing about Jedi Survivor. We don't have the time, Chris.
Okay. Let's talk about Hayden Christensen then.
Oh, yeah.
So Hayden Christensen famously played Anakin Skywalker once upon a time. Mm-hmm. And then he was in a couple other movies that were kind of bad. And then he just...
Jumper, which was terrible. And then there was another one where he was terrible.
Uh-huh. And like he just kind of disappeared from acting for a while.
And you know what? I've said this before. I cannot imagine anyone else playing Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, even with all his wooden kind of weird acting
and the bad dialogue and
the complete lack of chemistry with Natalie Portman and all that,
I still cannot think of a person who would like. He just is Anakin Skywalker to me. That being said,
George Lucas, the one thing George Lucas got right about that casting is that he does look like Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Like he looks exactly like you would expect Anakin Skywalker to look like.
He looks like, he looks like some variation of Luke as well.
He looks like an action hero, which is what you want.
He's not a great actor.
No?
And you don't have to be. You don't have to be an amazing actor to play a character really well. Like I get that and everything. And you don't, like, someone doesn't have to be, Marlon Brando or something for you to enjoy their performance in something. I just don't like him.
So he, of course, came back recently for a couple cameos in Obi-Wan and then Ahsoka. But he also recently re-signed with the Independent Artist Group, which is the talent agency that landed him the part of Anakin in the first place.
Yeah, so this either means he's doing more Star Wars stuff and he's kind of gearing up for contract negotiations and stuff.
Could very well be.
Or he's going to be like, I kind of miss this acting thing. Maybe I'm going to get back into it and do some other movies.
That is the more intriguing possibility to me, because like people change as they age and they learn stuff about themselves and about the world
and their craft.
Yeah, and it could very well be that Hayden Christensen has spent the past 2 decades or so like actually thinking, what sort of actor do I want to be? What sort of roles do I want to do? What sort of practice and study do I need to do to be able to fulfill that goal?
Jumper 2, the musical.
If it's good, I'm here for it.
Chris, it would not be good. All right. So I am always very terrified about not having enough material for our shows, which is always stupid because when you and I get together, we can talk about
anything for an hour.
So our special set, I'm going to preface this by saying, if we get done super early, that's fine anyway, because I need to set some extra stuff up for our Battlefront stream. We are going to talk about the great moments from every Star Wars film. Yes, all of them, even the ones we don't like.
Okay.
Because if you're the kind of person at home where you're like, hey, pick one good moment from Star Wars The Last Jedi, and you go, there aren't any, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Because there are good moments in that movie, and you're being dishonest, and you're not arguing in good faith, right? So, and there are even in the sequel trilogy and otherwise, there are movies that we don't like, right? And we're going to talk about the moments in each of these that have been like the things that you always want to watch when you watch them.
So we're being positive this week. If you want to see negativity, tune in.
That's next week. Yeah. So these are only the feature films.
Okay.
Going in chronological story order.
Okay.
And these can be specific scenes or specific quotes or broader concepts.
Okay.
And if yours doesn't appear, put it in the comments because we're happy to hear about that. And while you're here, make sure you like the video and subscribe. So we're going to start off with The Phantom Menace. As you know, chronologically, that movie happens first. What do you remember from The Phantom Menace?
I remember there's this really cool running fight sequence at the beginning when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are
That's
escaping.
The first thing on my list.
Yeah. It's kind of a Star Wars tradition to start with this big protracted action sequence. It doesn't happen in all of them. Like Empire Strikes Back has the Tauntaun sequence and all that.
Yeah.
But it works really well here to introduce us to the concept that, the Jedi are just a thing now. Like they're just here. They're an accepted part of the galaxy.
Yeah. And not only are they an accepted part of the galaxy, they're really good at what they do. And this is like a big change in pace from like the original Star Wars, where like you have Luke who's like, how do you be a Jedi? And everyone's like, I don't fucking know. They've been dead forever. And he's like,
do it.
Do I wave it around like this? And everyone's like, seriously, stop asking me. I don't fucking know.
Yoda's like, no, you do it like this. Yeah. And then you pull an X-Wing out of the swamp.
Right. And so like you see Luke fumble around, and by the time he gets to Return of the Jedi, he's like, okay, I am actually pretty good at this. Right. They've been good at this for 1,000 years already. And so this first scene of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just cutting through armies of battle droids, like as a kid in 1999, I was like, holy fuck, that's so cool. Another thing about the Phantom Menace, and this is a little contentious depending on who you ask, because the pod race takes up a third of that movie.
It is a spectacle. Yes.
That being said, it was at the time an insane VFX accomplishment of its time. Like, and it's it's good. Like, it's fun to watch. And there's something, everything from the sounds that all the different pods make. We of course have Anakin and he's using the Force and shit. And
it's been a while since I saw the movie, but this scene is also very noteworthy for the use of music and the times when there's no music.
Yeah,
like there's entire 10-15 second long stretches where there's just no music, and you're just left with the diegetic sounds of the environment. And then when it kicks in, it really fucking hits.
Yeah, there are moments like that in the other prequel movies as well. That's a John Williams thing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I tried not to put a bunch of John Williams on here because I could do I could do only John Williams things on this list, right? Speaking of which,
Duel of the Fates,
the music, of course, but also the event.
Yes,
where so in the beginning of the movie, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan deflecting blaster bolts and being crazy. They do a force speed at one point.
Yeah.
And you see just a little taste of Maul versus Qui-Gon in the desert, which is cool. But this lightsaber duel, we had never seen up to this point Jedi fight like this. And it's a different kind of fighting. It's way more light. They're a lot more graceful. There are more acrobatics.
It's not based in kendo anymore.
Right. Right. The lightsabers don't look like they weigh 400 pounds. Everything is very light and they swing them around very easily. And it lasts forever. Like, it's a long fucking sword fight.
Like, if the pod race is a third of the movie, that sequence where it also cuts away to like the Gungans fighting and then Anakin flying his ship, that's a third of the movie too.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why my partner John loves Episode 1 so much, because his favorite movie is Return of the Jedi. The reason is because the way the battle is formatted at the end.
Oh yeah.
Where Episode 1 does the same thing, where like it rhymes or whatever. Where there's a land battle, there's a space battle, and there's a sword fight. Yeah. Right. And they do the same thing at the end of Episode 1. And like, I wish they had this is going to go on the negative list, so I'm not going to say anything about that right now. That'll be next week. You have to tune in. The losing Qui-Gon was a big gut punch. Yeah, it was emotional and the stakes were really high. And watching Obi-Wan go berserk at the end is just fucking crazy and everything. So that's great.
I think just as one extra thing, we have to mention just how much this could apply to all of the prequels. How much the special effects and VFX and CG especially were advanced by these movies, because like there's a ton of stuff in those movies that had never been done before, and it's now completely commonplace. Like you expect it in just like Marvel TV shows who make fun of them for having shoddy CG, and like we wouldn't have any of that if it weren't for these prequels. It's
kind of a thing that George Lucas did. That's the one thing you can always count on, especially in the earlier Star Wars movies. They're like, we're just going to reinvent the industry, so this works. So let's move on to Star Wars: Attack of the Clones. Now,
if we must,
if every one of these is like, okay, I want to make 3 at least. I want to make 3 points, and there are a couple of these where I had to stretch to make 3 of them, and then I got to like. Revenge of the Sith, I'm like, oh god, I can't keep it to just 3. Yeah. And then like Empire Strikes Back, Last Jedi, they're all super long. So the first thing I loved about this, the detective noir feel of Obi-Wan's investigation of the saber dart and everything. Does it make sense logically? No. The whole Django hired Zam Wessel who outsources to a pair of bugs, all that shit doesn't make sense.
And then, if it doesn't exist in the archive, it doesn't exist.
Right. And the fact that Sifo Dyas was actually supposed to be a different word with one letter changed, so it would be an anagram of Sidious, but they misspelled it on the script. And so and they never fixed it.
Really?
So, and they had to make a new character because originally Sifo Dyas was going to be Darth Sidious, just with another name.
Just straight up Darth Sidious.
But the feel of that part of it is really cool. And like he like shows up in Community, he's like, what the fuck is this place?
And is that like the whole sequence of fighting Django, like trying to pursue him on Camino and then into the asteroid field especially,
It's another moment where they fight with the music, where for the first couple of minutes of that sequence, they're flying around chasing each other, and it was so that the seismic charges could be on display. And then when his missile tubes open, when Django's missile tubes open and fire, that's when the music starts, because then the missile's like chasing Obi-Wan and everything.
Part of the brilliance of John Williams is that he knows when to shut up.
Yeah. Yes. They had the legend has it. He had a disagreement about this with the producer at the time, Rick McCallum, because he wanted music at the beginning. He's like, we need music here. And he's like, no, man. No. Like, first of all, you have these like seismic charges going off. They have a very unique sound. Like putting instruments in that is like, that's only going to make it weird. Right. Yeah. And so he won because he's John Williams, and he's at that point was the most famous film composer that America or the world had ever had. The other thing, fucking Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, stuck in the execution arena. The fight starts. All the Jedi appear out of nowhere. Lightsabers turn on. First of all, this motherfucker starts out with Sam Jackson just appearing next to Jango Fett. And
he's like, hey, sup, bitch, I'm here.
I'm good. Don't even think about I could move my wrist and take your head clean the fuck off. Dooku, I need to word with you. And the whole this party's over thing. And then like, it's like they rehearsed it before they went in. He's like, okay, I'm going to say this party's over. You guys everywhere. That's when we turn our lightsabers on. And they're like, wait, what's the line? This party's over. And they're like, okay, got it. He says it, all the lightsabers, and he's like, see, I told you this would be cool, man. Seeing that many Jedi, and they land in the arena, fucking, it's like a Jedi army just running at, the battle droids and everything. As a child in like middle school or junior high or whatever, when I saw that, I shat my pants, because just like in the first movie, we are used to seeing Jedi a certain way. It was Luke and Ben in the original trilogy,
figments of legend,
right? And just one guy, right? And then you've got like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and then Darth Maul, and then in episode 2, it's like all the Jedi show up, and they're like, they're not the only ones that are really good at this. We all are, and they have a big fucking fight, and it's great. And then Yoda just kind of like flying in and be like, okay, this
around the survivors perimeter.
Which I can't, like, I would have put a shot in of one of the clone troopers being like,
the fuck did you just say?
What did he say? Yeah. And then I think the big standout part of this movie, the thing that everyone skips to, is the fight between Yoda and Dooku.
I include everything before that. So like
the Dooku versus
Anakin, and then Obi-Wan, and then Anakin again, and then Yoda.
Yeah, Anakin kind of ruins it for me because he says things. I'm like, don't.
We're staying positive, Dave.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that'll be on next week.
There's fun little parts of every segment of that fight, like when Anakin and Dooku both go lightsaber
and the lights go out and everything. Yeah, yes, that is really neat.
And when Yoda just starts throwing the room at Dooku.
Now that's the thing. So when I was a kid, I was like, oh, like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, they're gonna fight, they're gonna show down, and they're throwing stuff, and I'm like, they're just gonna use the Force, like. Come on.
I mean, that's also pretty cool.
I know, but I was like, it would be really neat. Like, I think every kid was like, did Yoda have a lightsaber? Like, what's the deal with that?
Yes, he did. He pulled it out with the Force.
And that's one of those moments where it just like turns into a fever dream when I was a kid, because it isn't enough for him just to take it out. He's got to be so extra about it. And then add on top of that John Williams scores the moment with these religious sounding choir parts. Like all these people just like singing at the top of their lungs, and Yoda like doesn't look down at his belt or anything. He's like looking him straight in the face. He's like, watch this motherfucker. And then the fight was pretty cool after that. All right. So this is where the prequel movies start getting really good for me. Okay. Revenge of the Sith.
Is it just me, or is this another movie where like a third of it is that first sequence with Grievous?
Yeah. Or on the ship, you mean? Yeah. And some of it, look, there are, like, next week we're going to talk about the things in this where I'm like, I always fast forward through this part. There are a lot of moments like that,
other than the fun begins.
Yes, right. So first of all, the opening shot of this movie is legendary. The like you see the ships and the camera pans up and then you see the battle just unfolding, and you're like, whoa, this is like a full, like we're starting off with a full space battle. And so that whole thing is cool. And I love how they get to the ship to rescue Palpatine, and they crash land. Fucking Obi-Wan has no time for anything, just vaults out of his ship, right? And he's like, I'm just gonna look like a badass motherfucker. And Anakin like has to land and like take his seatbelt off. And Obi-Wan's like, I was never wearing one. So that whole thing is cool. That duel is pretty neat too at the beginning. Between and at this point, I think everyone kind of figured out the whole Palpatine Sidious thing. Yeah. So everyone was watching this like, oh, what web is he spinning?
Make him do it.
Right. So like that whole thing is cool. The next 30 minutes of the movie is like, oh, what the fuck? This is not necessarily entertaining, and that's fine. One of the hugest standout moments for me is the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise, because there is something about how it feels like,
if I remember right, it's also a very cool music cue.
Yeah, it's all very low men's voices. And it starts where Anakin comes in and sits down, and Palpatine doesn't even say anything, and everyone leaves. They just fucking know. And you know that this is the point where Anakin's been in the web for a little bit, but like this is where Palpatine is got him. Yeah. Like it's over at this point, and then like he just doesn't realize it yet. And the whole tale, because he's trying to frame it as like, oh, it's this ancient Sith from millennia ago, but we know it's the dude that taught him. Like we're learning Palpatine's origin story in this story, and you're like, that's so fucking cool. Mace Windu confronting Palpatine is my favorite part of the whole movie, and I know that there are a ton of other great things too, like the duel at the end we're going to talk about. That door opens. Sam Jackson is like barreling through, and there's a look on his face where I swear to God, if I were Palpatine, I just would have been like, I surrender. Like before the weapon even comes out, and like he looks pissed as fuck. I've seen him in other movies. This will not go well for me. And it does not. And I get that there's some contention about who wins this duel.
There's the thought that Palpatine lost on purpose in order to get Anakin.
That's because they have not read the novelization. Mace Windu wins that fight, and it wasn't necessarily hard for him at the end, because Mace Windu loved fighting, and he's like, I finally have a worthy opponent. Yes. Oh,
finally a worthy opponent. Our battle shall be legendary.
And then it's like, oh, I beat him.
Huh. Well, now what do I do?
Right. Now, like that's going to go on the negative list next week. Order 66 in this movie is emotionally charged.
Yeah.
Everything about it is great. It breaks your heart to watch it, because these are like the Republic Golden guys. Like they're all the good guys.
And in a lot of cases, these are minor characters that we've seen for 2.5 movies at this point, like Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah. And none of them see it coming, and it's so cold. And the betrayal just like really hurts to watch it happen. And then Anakin just descending into absolute madness and killing children, and you're like, how did this guy ever get a fucking,
They do the shot of him walking into the temple with all the clones behind him so well. Yeah. Like,
and the music there, that fucking, that cue that he wrote, I can't remember what it's called. Nightfall, maybe? Because that was the name of the operation to take. I can't remember.
But like they shoot that so well, like what's going to happen, and they take their time with showing you that everyone going into the temple, and it adds to the dread.
Yeah. And then at the end, that 2-part lightsaber battle that at the time, it might still be at the time, was the longest sword fight in cinema history. And all of it's cool. Yeah. Fucking even the weird stuff, like Palpatine throwing a thing and then Yoda throwing it back, and Palpatine like not noticing until it was like there almost on. Doesn't oh God. Doesn't matter. Like that whole shot pulling back on Palpatine and Yoda on the podium that's like rising, and you're like, oh, of course they're doing it in the Senate. Like that's so cool. And it's it's imagery on several different levels, look, I know a lot of people love this movie. If we didn't say something that you liked, put it in the comments. Solo Star Wars story.
All right.
Han and we're not going to spend a bunch of time on these next two. Han and Chewie's bromance.
Yes,
their decision to stay with each other. He's like, you saved me. We're in this together from now on. We might as well be married. Yeah. Donald Glover, every scene,
God,
blows it out of the water.
He steals the movie.
And you know what? I like Alden Ehrenreich's Han Solo. I know a lot of people don't, or I don't know, some people don't. It's hard to tell. Social media, it seems like everyone hates everything. But I liked his Han Solo. I loved Don Glover's Lando Calrissian. It was like, it's like he hung out with Billy D. Williams for like a year. And it was like, okay, I'm just going to be a younger him. It was perfect.
Like what makes it work is that he's just a little bit extra as Lando.
Which he would be. Yeah, Lando's just extra.
You also consider that like the Lando we see in Empire Strikes Back has had 10, 15 years past this to sort of mature and maybe draw back a little bit. And
he hasn't really, but he has a little bit, but he's still wearing capes for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of guy he is. The end, there's this climax where, like earlier on, Woody Harrelson's character tells Han Solo, "Hey, kid, don't ever trust anybody." Mm-hmm. And at the end, there's a big climax where he's like, "Hey, I told you never to trust anybody," and he's talking about shooting first or something. Mm-hmm. I can't remember how the conversation goes, but Han just ices him mid-sentence, and it's like the folks making this movie in that moment settled the question of who shot first, Rita or Han. It was fucking Han Solo. Of course it was.
I love that because it establishes the Han that we see in episode 4 as like, he is the guy who just shoots someone cold blood.
And they never should have changed it. It's okay to have a hero like that. Right?
It's okay to have someone who starts out kind of morally gray and, eventually grows through their adventures and through love or whatever.
And he didn't shoot at the beginning of the conversation with Greedo. He tried to like figure it out.
He's like, you can just walk away and pretend you never saw me. And then,
he's not inherently evil. It's just like, he's like, all right, this is going to be a fight. I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Right. And that's fine. Rogue One. The concept in general is amazing. I fucking love the concept, the war movie in the Star Wars universe. Mm-hmm. It's like fucking Tora, but like with AT-ATs and shit. Like it was really neat. Every character in this movie is great.
God, this is the best use of an ensemble cast I can think of.
Krennic, fucking Cassian, Jyn Erso, Tarkin. I know looking back, he looks a little funky. I totally get it.
Weird, yeah.
But at the time, that technology was insane.
Yeah.
Where it was like
beyond cutting edge.
They don't just show the reflection of him in the glass. He has a whole fucking monologue, and it's like pushed in on his face. Yeah. And looking back,
they were really fucking proud of what they did. And they deserved to be because they were pushing the technology in places that had never gone before.
Morally, was it all right?
We'll talk about that next week.
K2SO. Okay. Obviously.
Again, every character in this movie is great.
They had the balls to kill all the main characters.
Yes. Everyone fucking dies.
That's great.
Like, I'm sorry if you've never seen that movie before. Spoilers, by the way. Everyone fucking dies.
Yeah. And it's great. It's a better movie for it. Mm-hmm. They're like, no one, and they shot another version of that movie where Jyn and Cassian get rescued at the end right before the shockwave comes in. And I'm glad they didn't like give into that.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a stunning end to those characters. And then, of course, you can't.
Vader.
Yeah, you can't mention Rogue One without Vader's fucking hallway scene.
I think it's only like 30 seconds or something, but it is harrowing.
It's the 30 seconds of that movie that got everyone to come back and see it a second and third time.
Yeah.
Because I would have waited to see it again on Blu-ray or streaming or whatever.
It's a really fucking good movie. Yeah, it's not something you have to see in theaters.
Right. Again. The Vader thing, I was like, I'm going to go see this motherfucker 3 more times.
Yeah.
Okay, Star Wars A New Hope.
Okay.
Isn't very high on my list of Star Wars movies. I realize the impact of it, and it will always be that thing that started everything, and it will have my respect for that. But as far as watchability goes, I'll bring this up next week. However, the opening shot of this movie with the fucking Star Destroyer, we've never seen that in cinema before, or at least the people hadn't seen it in a while.
Yeah.
And it was the fact that it was they were using practical models and everything, the VFX of that, the VFX for the time.
Again, they were pushing VFX in places that had never gone before.
The thing that I really love about The New Hope, or A New Hope, I don't think it's called The New Hope. I'm just putting that out there. I was misspeaking. The way that Luke follows the typical hero's journey thing, where he has the call to action from an old mentor and he refuses it, just like the formula calls for.
And then his aunt and uncle die, and he's like, "There's nothing left for me here," and he goes.
And then he takes that first step into a bigger universe, and you're like, because you feel like you're him, and you're like, we're gonna discover everything in this crazy fucking galaxy. And in particular, that moment, that tipping point for him when he finds Crispy, Uncle Owen, and Aunt Beru, the music that he writes while he's riding in the land speeder to go find like their bodies and shit. Some of the best music John Williams has ever written. It's so good.
I feel like this movie is kind of hard for a list like this because to me, the impact and the lasting feeling of it doesn't rest on any particular scene. It's the agglomeration of everything.
Yeah, it's just the audacity he had to make it.
I guess just in general, all the special effects and especially the Death Star's attack.
Yeah.
Like all those practical models, when you think about all the battleship kits that Industrial Light and Magic glued together.
They're tank kits and plane kits. Yeah, just insane.
Just all these model kits they tacked together to make this giant plane of metal that was the Death Star surface.
Everything felt so real and so tactile.
Because it was. Because it was actual physical things They don't
make movies like that anymore. At least mostly they don't. Also, the chemistry between Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher that's such a rare thing to have chemistry.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Empire Strikes Back. My favorite movie.
Can we just say all of
the entire movie? But if I get into specifics, I love the fact that the gang splits up. Mm-hmm. It's one of those expectation subversions, and it's the reason why the bad guys or the good guys lose at the end is because they're not together, and that's kind of when they're strongest, right? So like Luke goes off to Dagobah, and then since they're not together, shit hits the fan, and they're not there for each other. And by the time that they are, it's too late anyway, and
I think as long as we're talking about Dagobah, we have to mention the Force Cave and Luke's Force LSD trip in there. And like we've talked about it before, but I have to mention like the cinematography, like the way the frame rate slows down to emphasize frames and how dreamlike it is, the helmet exploding and turning into Luke's face, and like it's all the subtlety of a brick to the face, but it gets the point across and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. Yoda in this movie, what a legendary character. It's just
God.
I wonder if people knew it at the time when that movie came out, how insanely legendary Yoda would become as a character. It
almost feels like every Yoda appearance after Empire Strikes Back has been a caricature.
Yeah.
Because like in Empire Strikes Back, he has so much depth of character, and like the puppeteers and Frank Oz show like a real character, like that, ranging from the jumping around poking R2-D2 with a stick to like sitting outside the cave pensive, like he's worried about what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and when Luke refuses to give his weapons up, and just the look from Yoda, a fucking rubber puppet, who's like this fucking idiot, right?
And then, of course, lifting the X-Wing out of the swamp.
And then the best line maybe in all of Star Wars, I don't believe it. That's why you failed. You motherfucker.
Yeah.
That was in the original script. They cut it. The revelation of Vader being Luke's father.
Yes.
This changed cinema in a way that people didn't understand at the time, where every movie afterwards was trying to capture that feeling where, a big revelation about a thing you didn't expect. This is because of Empire Strikes Back. People weren't trying to make that kind of subversion before that. It was insane. Just fucking like the fact that Luke loses so big at the end.
Yes.
Your hero loses the fight. And that's a cool thing to do.
He doesn't just lose. He gets fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
Like he gets his hand cut off. He gets this horrible truth revealed to him. He's like on the verge of turning to the dark side.
Yeah.
And like it's only the fact that he falls off, possibly to his death, that all hope isn't lost.
Yeah. So Return of the Jedi. My second favorite Star Wars movie. Jedi Knight Luke's entrance at Jabba's palace. I will never not watch that in that movie.
I love how it parallels the droids coming in. Like C-3PO and R2-D2 come in, and they're just kind of bumbling along. They give the message, and C-3PO's like, what message? We're a gift? What the fuck?
Yeah.
And then Luke comes in, and it's entirely different.
Yeah.
Like,
you know what's crazy about that is imagine watching that scene as someone who's only seen the first two movies and seeing it for the first time. For the first couple of seconds, you could be forgiven for thinking it's Vader.
Yeah. But
which is so fucking cool.
I think they did that deliberately.
Yes. This is another thing where if you think about the logic of it, it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't matter because it's really fun. Does it make sense that he sent in the droids?
No,
and then
really.
Sent in Leia and Chewie.
No.
And then everyone gets captured. And
it's all so stupid.
And that's fine. It doesn't matter.
It's entertainment for children.
What you're supposed to feel like is that Luke has this complete control over the situation where everything that happens, he's like, oh, yes, that's exactly what I thought would happen. Right. And there's this moment in this film, even as a kid, it would make me crazy, still does. They're about to throw his ass into the Sarlacc pit. He gives the salute to R2. The music comes in. He does a fucking flip, grabs a lightsaber. I used to try to do that shit when I was a kid. Like that was such a huge moment for me. The final battle format was a huge deal at the time.
Yes.
The fact that they had 3 different battles going on where you weren't confused by the geography of it. You knew exactly where everyone was and what was happening. The plan kind of made sense. And while these 2 physical fights are going on, you have this fight of souls that's happening on the Death Star. Yeah. Yes, there's a sword fight between Luke and Vader. It's very reluctant though. Like Luke doesn't want to have that fight.
He says over and over, "I will not fight you."
And he's
Vader's like, "Fuck you! You're gonna fight me."
But what's so meaningful about that is both of them are pulling punches, or pulling punches to not hurt the other one
with their lightsabers, but not with their emotions.
Right. And the fact that that very much is a battle of, of ideas and not necessarily for strength.
And that Palpatine is sort of the architect of his own demise.
And he's a good character.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the people later on will be like, oh, they introduced Snoke and they immediately killed him. How long did we know Palpatine before they killed him? We knew him for a movie and they fucking killed him. It's not that big of a deal, right?
He showed up as a giant hologram in Empire Strikes Back, and that was all the backstory we had on him.
So all the backstory you have for Snoke, and then he dies in the next movie, just like Palpatine. So anyway, there's a moment where Luke fully embraces Ben Kenobi's teaching, and this is where you're like, you are now actually a Jedi. It always felt weird to me where Yoda's like, you have to face Vader to be a Jedi. And I think what he meant was you have to come to this realization that your job as a Jedi isn't to fight, right? Or at least all the time. It isn't. And there's the moment where Palpatine's like, I'm going to teach you. And he's like, no, fuck you. And he tosses the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And that's where Luke Skywalker becomes a Jedi, right? Because he's like, fucking kill me. I don't care. Look, I'm tired of this. Just fucking kill me. Like, I just want to go home.
I will die before I turn to the dark side. Is more or less what he says.
And then there's this moment, they ruined it in the special edition. We'll talk about it next week. The original cut of this is so good, where you've learned 5 minutes before the movie ends that Palpatine can do lightning rapey hands, right? Which was a bold decision where they're like, this movie's ending in 5 minutes. Let's throw another force power in here. And it's fucking cool. And he's like just shocking the shit out of Luke. And you see this realization where, especially when you look at it through the lens of having seen the prequels, where you're like, Vader's like, I can't let Palpatine kill another part of Padme. Like this is Padme's legacy.
Yeah.
And he already ruined everything for everybody, including me. And this is where it has to stop.
I love the tension they build by Vader just sort of standing there looking at Luke.
And he doesn't say anything, which is
looking at Palpatine, looking at Luke.
Yeah.
Looking at Palpatine. And then he's like, fuck it. I'm going to pick you up and throw you down the pit.
Finally, he's just like, not this time. Like, I can't let this happen. Like, I can't let this happen again. They make it comical in the special edition where he does, the thing. That'll go on next week. We got 10 minutes to do the sequel trilogy.
All right.
We can do it.
We can make it happen.
Not because there aren't great things in the sequel trilogy, just because I can talk very fast. The Force Awakens. The opening crawl, starting with Luke Skywalker has vanished. Where I saw that, I was like, where'd he go? What happened to him?
Just say that. Yeah. Like, what happened?
What a great way. Because J.J. Abrams opens a mystery box like a motherfucker, right? That was his like, oh, watch this. And you're like, okay, well, I would like to know more about that, please. Because everyone came to that movie wanting to see Luke Skywalker. And he's like, we don't know where the fuck he is. Do you?
Sorry.
Like, no, I just paid to get in here. Like, I don't know where he is.
Blue milk carton.
Right, yeah.
I love the first 2 or 3 scenes with Kylo because they sort of built him up as this incredible badass. Like he's like torturing the village headman. Like he stops the blaster bolt in the air. And then the next scene is him on his Star Destroyer or whatever. And someone tells him something he doesn't want to hear. He pulls out his lightsaber and just cuts this console up.
A child in a mask.
Yes.
That's all he is.
He's a child with way too much power.
Yeah. John Williams' music for Rey is some of the best music in Star Wars.
Oh God, I love that theme.
One of these days we're going to make a list of the best musical cues from Star Wars.
This will be on it.
Yeah, this will be on it. The concept of a defecting stormtrooper.
Sure. Yeah.
That I really love that idea.
And the fact that Finn, it's more believable in that the more Finn finds out, he sort of wavers.
Yeah.
Like halfway through, he's like, I'm not sure I want to go on and be part of the resistance anymore.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he never had it in him to be that kind of person. And because he never kills anyone. He's just like,
I don't know what I want to do, but I know I don't want to do this.
I thought I could do it. I can't. So I guess I'm just going to commit treason. And then,
sorry.
Han and Leia's first moment of the film together and their final moment. Even the joke with the red arm thing. This is another beautiful musical moment where they play Han and Leia's theme from the original trilogy. And because they're both fantastic actors, a lot of that scene is just them looking at each other.
It's so understated, which makes it so believable to me.
Yeah. And you can tell that they share this in this pain. And then Han's like, I saw our son. And I think up until that moment, I think everyone put it together, but you didn't know that Kylo was actually their son. And they have this moment of like, oh, fuck. Yeah, that kid.
What has he done now?
And then their final moment with, like Han grabs
bring
her.
Our
and,
son back.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of
Han and Ben
on the
or
bridge.
Kylo. Yeah. The way this is shot with the lighting, everything. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And the fact that they committed to it and they had him kill his father. That was kind of a big deal when you actually think about it. I was saying at the time, it was one of those moments that you don't come back from, and it should have made Kylo Ren irredeemable. And I wish I hadn't redeemed him. I think it would have been fine for him to die.
We'll talk about that next time, but yeah.
And then the last scene with Luke is why I went to go see this another 6 times in theaters.
He says nothing.
Yeah.
He just stares at the camera.
I could have seen this 3 or 4 times and been happy with it. I saw this movie 6 times in theaters just for that final scene, because there's something, not a single word, but a shit ton of acting where he turns around, he pulls the fucking hood back, and you're like, what happened to you? Like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Because he turns around, he's like, oh God, I don't know. Everything's falling apart.
I have to add in the lightsaber duel with Kylo in the woods where it's all snowing.
Oh, I forgot to put that on the list.
And Finn tries to fight, and he's just being played with.
Yeah.
Like Kylo hitting himself in his blaster wound.
He's like, get it together, fucker. Yeah.
To give himself more pain to fuel the dark side.
Oh, yeah. Chewie's anguish when.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing from this part that I loved is this. If you're paying attention to how some of the news was happening, or like some of the toys that were released, I think people kind of figured out that Rey. I wasn't looking that closely at it.
Anakin's lightsaber goes flying through the air past Kylo Ren into Rey's hand.
And like who was not paying careful attention because I didn't want it spoiled, I was like, what? And
they let a girl be a Jedi?
It's just that moment where you're like, oh, that's so fucking cool. And they use the same. I mentioned this musical cue in the original Star Wars with the land speeder on the way to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. Same musical cue they use for her grabbing the lightsaber. Yep. And it's the Force, and then it like goes into the Force theme, and you're like, oh my God, it's just so badass. The Last Jedi, my third favorite Star Wars movie. I'm not sorry, eat my ass. The intimacy of the story, I love the fact that it happens within a few hours, and like it's so much like Empire Strikes Back, where everyone breaks up, and as a result, they get their butts kicked and everything. I love that about it.
Poe in this movie, like he tries so hard to be the badass who has everything under control, and every time he tries, it just fails. Because
Leia sees stuff that he hasn't learned to see yet, and that's what his story is, learning to see those things. Luke grappling with his demons. I don't care. Look, I've heard the argument. Luke would never blah blah. It's like you don't know anything about being an adult.
Also, you don't own Star Wars, so you can't say what Luke would or wouldn't do.
Right. Also, like you just wait until life takes a shit right on your head, and you tell me that you haven't lost an ounce of your idealism. Because that happens to every fucking person. Where you get to a certain age, you get shit on enough, and you're just like, I would like to burn everything to the ground. I'm just so tired of this. And that's what happens to Luke. And it makes him relatable as a character. It's what I love about him.
Rey and Kylo's Force FaceTime.
Yeah, which
it's awkward at times,
and
which is exactly what it would be. If
it's close to force sexting, by the way,
yes.
which I love. This realization that Luke's blocking himself off from the Force was a big deal for me to discover the first time, because it was like that. You find out through the novelization and the comics that it took a tremendous effort for him to be able to do that, because his connection to the Force was so instinctual and permanent.
Like breathing.
Yeah, that the idea that he would just cut himself off from that, you're just like, how the fuck did you even do that? There's a moment where it was during one of Rey's lessons where he gives her a history lesson. He's like, all this shit happened, fucking Darth Sidious, Vader, my fucking deadbeat dad, here we are. And Rey says to Luke, you didn't fail Kylo, he failed you. And this is another great example of Mark Hamill not saying anything but acting a ton, where he's got this look on his face where it, like, you can just tell that he needed really badly to hear someone say it, because he's just like, can I allow myself just for a second to believe this? Because it wasn't his fault.
Sure.
Now I get that, like, that's actually an entirely different I can make an entire video of it. We're not going to go there.
Anyway.
Yeah. Luke, hold on. Luke versus Rey. Their half-assed sword fight where Luke's like, okay, I'm going to grab this fucking antenna as a sword.
And then just slap you with it.
Yeah, and he's just like, this is boring. And then she pulls a lightsaber on him, and it's that first moment where he falls over, but he doesn't realize he's not supposed to use the Force, but it's just instinct. And then he realizes he's done, and he just lets himself down. He's like, God damn it, I'm still in this situation.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool moment.
Rey and Kylo versus the Royal Guard or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Hold on, let me get there. We're probably going to go over. So Luke deciding to use the Force for the first time on purpose.
Yes.
Where he goes to the little bird feeder, and he puts his hand on it, and it's just like, and you're like, oh God, he's doing something cool. And the first thing, because he's had his phone unplugged, plugs it back in. First thing he realizes is that his sister is in trouble. And he's like, I have to do something. In the novelization, in the movie, that's where he's running back yelling for Rey. In the novelization, you find out that he's yelling for Rey to say, let's go. He had decided to leave. Yeah. And that's when he walked in on Kylo and them doing their Force masturbation. And he's like, oh, right. There's still this problem that I can't add to. Luke and Yoda. I don't think I have to say a ton about that. Everything about it is perfect. The conversation
they have really resonates if you've ever been a teacher of any sort.
Right. Snoke's death is fucking awesome.
Yes.
And when it happens, the music that's with it,
turns on the lightsaber and slays his enemy, cuts it.
Yeah. And then the lightsaber flies at the screen, and then Rey's hand catches it, and she like comes up out of frame, and she looks at Kylo like, what did you just do? What is happening? Someone explain to me what is happening here.
No time to explain. We have this badass fight scene.
And it is really cool. I'm like, I know everyone, like there are people that like to nitpick this one part where one of the Praetorian guards loses his weapon in between frames. This happens in every movie with an action scene. There are continuity issues in every single movie. The fact that you could only find one means that you're splitting hairs and you should stop. Luke's apology to Leia at the end over Ben, their final moment together, especially when we watch this knowing that Carrie Fisher has died, was extremely emotional. And the fact that like Luke decides to do the most, badass thing ever. And people never give him the character enough credit about the amazing feat that he pulls off here. The fact that he stops an army in its tracks. He wins the battle without hurting a single fucking person, which is the most Ben Kenobi thing ever. It's a continuation of the lesson he learned in Return of the Jedi. He never forgot that lesson. Maybe he went on a little spree where he was legend Luke Skywalker, but in the end, he's like, this is how you be a Jedi, right? Yeah. And of course Rey sees it. And that's how she learns that lesson as well. And then of course the fucking see around kid. If
they had a plan for the sequel trilogy,
right? It would have
been so great.
Yeah. Also, when they cut away, and when Kylo's like, wait, you're not actually there, and they cut away, and Luke's like in God mode floating above the rock. He's like, look at me, motherfuckers. You can go and catch a bunch of YouTube videos of audience reaction. I don't care how many people bitch in the comment sections about The Last Jedi. People were crazy about this movie. You go and look at audience reactions of this, of when it cuts away to Luke, and the entire audience just loses their fucking mind because it is so cool.
We forgot to mention the Holdo maneuver.
Oh yeah, that's no, you're right. Yeah,
one of the most mind-boggling bits of cinematography I think I've ever seen.
Yeah. So The Rise of Skywalker.
I really love Rey and Kylo's fight over Force FaceTime.
I did. Okay.
Just the concept is really cool. I know it doesn't make any physical sense. I know, but it's the Force. It doesn't. I know,
and I didn't like. I don't like it mostly, but then I make an exception for the end when she gives him the lightsaber, and then he's just like, "Yeah, sorry guys,
it's the Force."
Yeah. The idea of a Jedi assassin running around, that could have been the whole story.
Yeah,
it could have been a Jedi assassin who was chasing Rey around, and they were trying to figure it out.
That probably would have been a better movie for him.
That could have been cool. Richard E. Grant in this movie is great, and he's my favorite part of the movie. And the
entire Who's the Spy subplot is fantastic.
Yes. I get it's a little goofy, but it entertains me because I think the thing that everyone shat their pants though is after Palpatine is like revived into like full I have my face back, and he does the Force Storm. And he's like, "Oh, watch this," and like the sound is like the sound design and everything is crazy. And it's like you've seen him use Force lightning before, but like he's
using it on ships.
Yeah, and it's just like he's
hitting things in orbit from the surface.
Yeah, it is pretty fucking great. So we're gonna talk about the stuff we didn't love in this next week or in every movie next week. Yeah, we hope to see you there. Real quick. Geek Ledger, Shattered Glass with Hayden Christensen was great. One of his best performances. I don't think I've seen that. It's based on a true story about a journalist who made up stories for a political magazine. That sounds interesting, and now I kind of want to watch it. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do Battlefront after this. It was supposed to start 4 minutes ago, but we kind of got
carried away. It live.
Yeah. So we'll see you there in a few minutes. Make sure you sign up for notifications, and you'll get a notification when we go live. We'll see you here in a few minutes.
Bye.